Hello, everyone. Welcome to VertiMax On Air. My name is Connor Storch. I work with VertiMax on their digital initiatives, and today is an awesome opportunity for you guys to meet with the pros, ask questions, and just get, an in-depth discussion on the VertiMax and training in general. So let's get to the good stuff. We have an awesome panel here. They're all renowned experts in their field, and they're going to introduce themselves. So we'll start with Mr. Alan Stein of Stronger Team Training.
Hey, Connor. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity to be here. Excited to share kind of my journey and a lot of the things I've picked up along the way since I started in the field back in the late 90s. I specialize in improving basketball-specific athleticism and obviously have found the VertiMax to be an incredible tool for me to use that with my players.
Nice. And are you excited for tonight?
Very, absolutely. I'm actually on vacation right now, and this is the only time I broke my digital detox was to be with you guys, so I am super amped to be here, absolutely.
We really appreciate that.
No, my pleasure.
All right, well, next up is Miss Alicia Bell of Train It Right. Alicia, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. I'm just very excited to be part of this amazing panel of other coaches. It's really great to be a part of the VertiMax family on this end. I just love training myself and training the athletes that I do coach on a VertiMax. It's just one of the best pieces of equipment out there for the type of training that I do. And yeah, just really great to be here.
Nice. Thank you. And I think we're getting more viewers right now, and we might have to introduce ourselves again if it's lagging. Like right now, we're up to almost 30, 50 viewers. It's just skyrocketing. So some people might just be tuning in right now. All right.
Sure.
Next up is our Director of Sports Science, Jody Johnson. How you doing?
Good, guys. How you doing? Like Alicia, I'm excited to be here. I'm a huge VertiMax fan, being Director of Sports Science. I appreciate Mike Worrell giving me the opportunity to do that. Mike being our CEO, which you guys will meet here soon. But like Alan, I actually started training back in the 90s, and late 90s, I should say, and have had a really great opportunity to work with many great athletes. I've worked at a university as a head strength coach down in Tampa, University of Tampa. During my journey, I've had some unique opportunities to train athletes for long periods of time. My most famous athlete is, I think, up from Alan's neck of the woods, the center fielder for the Washington Nationals, Denard Span. He's been my client for 12 years.
Wow.
And I have worked throughout their height to pros. So very unique because of the length of time and being in the private industry. I've had that opportunity.
All right, Jody.
Use them. Work on it. Yeah, that's on.
Are you guys hearing Jody all right?
No, I'm he's dropping out.
Yeah, he's dropping out.
All right, we'll move on. Sorry, Jody. Mike Worrell, how you doing?
Good evening, Connor. It's great to be here. Alan, Alicia, and Jody, and it's great that you can join us here. I'm very excited to be here tonight, and I'm the CEO of the VertiMax company, and I'm probably dating myself here, but I kind of started all this in the late 80s. Again, my specialty is designing high-speed, light-load training devices to help athletes train in ways that typical conventional training systems really don't give us a chance to train, give us the opportunity to train like we want or need athletes to train. So again, what I enjoy doing is finding those new ways, developing new devices and methods to let athletes train at super high speeds with light loads and mimic the motions and movements they do in actual sports.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. We know you're like super busy with all the new stuff that's coming out. So thank you very much for taking the time to speak to everybody and do this VertiMax on air.
Thank you.
So Jody, are you still with us? It's not looking good.
We'll pick up the slack.
Yeah, all right. Well, I think we should start with Mike, and I think everybody just really wants to know uh, where, VertiMax started, that idea. Where did this all originate?
Well, I was a wide receiver, a walk-on wide receiver at the University of Florida, and I love sports. And when I graduated, I moved out to California and I started playing competitive beach volleyball. And I was squatting like 500 pounds, and had at that time probably about a 4.5 40. Could run really fast, but when I got out on the volleyball court, I had a terrible vertical leap, and it just didn't make sense to me. I kept asking myself, how could I be so strong, but have a terrible vertical leap? And I started thinking, I said, well, you know what? I think it may have to do with how fast you train with a load. Typically, when athletes train with heavy weights, obviously your velocity cannot be high. And there's a very strong correlation between how much force an athlete can generate and the velocity they're trying to push an object, which may be a ground or the ball they're throwing. So I said, okay, let's get away from weights. Let's use elastics. And I thought it was very important that the athlete be loaded when they initiate their explosive movement. Typical elastic jump training systems back in the late 80s had elastic bands just tied to the ground. When you attach those bands to your waist and squat, the bands went slack, and you actually had no load when you initiated the explosive movement. So I said, all right, let's retract the bands into the platform so they can't go slack. And that was the initial VertiMax. It was only a 4-band system. And it worked so well, within weeks I had the top AVP volleyball players in the world training in my backyard, and then ESPN was in my backyard. And the guy said, Mike, you gotta patent this thing. And I said, all right. And that was the birth of VertiMax. UCLA bought the very first system I built in my garage in 1990. And the system has just been evolving ever since, becoming more and more advanced. Now we can actually train sprinters off platform, loading the drive and recovery phase. We've got some really neat products coming out now and in the near future that can really change the way athletes train virtually in every sport in the world.
That's amazing. It really has grown so much, and I feel like in particular this year, it's so much new stuff is coming out.
That's right. We have the Raptor. We have the VertiMax EX, the original V8 system, which is about 6 or 7 years old now. You can only run about 10 yards away from the system. Now we've got the V8 EX allows athletes to run 20 yards away from the system at high speed. So we've got 3 of the fastest sprinters in the U.S. right now using it, and about 33, 34 world-class sprinters, and most of the Adidas sponsored track athletes are using the system now. We also have which we're really excited about, is a Raptor, which is basically a portable version of the V8 EX, and it can strap to a fence or a wall, and you've got 2 bands that come out of that system, and you can load the athlete from the wall out to about 22, 23 yards at high speed, and it completely retracts all the way into the wall again. So you can do some pretty amazing things, attaching the baseball bats, pitchers' hands. They can throw fastballs full speed without disrupting their movement. So we're pretty excited about that, and we're pretty sure you're going to be seeing that in Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA training facilities real soon.
Wow. So, Alan, I have a question for you.
Sure.
When did you get to know the VertiMax? How did this come into your life? And
well,
I
I was probably indirectly introduced to it fairly early on, as I've always tried to stay really cutting edge on any modality and any piece of equipment. But I'd like to say that I actually met Mike and Al and the rest of the VertiMax family. Well, it's probably been 5 or 6 years now. And, from the first time I laid eyes on it, it just made sense. It just clicked. I mean, I could see before I even stepped on the platform why this was such an innovative tool and why I had to get my hands on one. And one of the things I think is so tremendous about it is what Mike has done to show folks what you can do off-platform, because I think a lot of folks have originally pigeonholed it as being something that you only worked on platform, but the variety of ways that you can use it are unbelievable. And with my own training with basketball players, try to introduce as much variety as possible at all times. Keeps things fresh, keeps things fun, and never want to limit myself or the players that I work with. So, it's really been a great tool. But, I remember very early in my career just having heard the word about it on the street, and, very thankful to have met Mike and the rest of the crew.
Awesome. And I just want to remind everyone watching from home that they can start sending questions to our expert panelists with the hashtag VertiMax On Air. We already got a couple, so you guys want to get started with that live Q&A?
Yeah.
Sure.
First one is for Miss Alicia. Alicia, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, the first question for you, and we actually got this one on Facebook, so we just posted it through our Twitter.
Okay.
It says, Alicia, what are the best methods for motivating young track athletes to work out in the weight room?
Okay, that's an awesome question because I work with a lot of young track athletes. That's kind of my niche right now is working with sprinters. And a lot of them, I find that come to me first, they don't actually have any experience in the weight room. Their previous coaches haven't had them in the weight room. They don't see it necessary. But it's so important to start working on your speed and your strength and your power in general. So what I like to do is I like to make it so that they can relate to something. So uh, give them an example of one of the athletes that they look up towards, like one of the national champions, either in Canada or in the States, someone that's known for working hard not only on the track but off the track. So I usually will bring it back to somebody that they can relate to, like Justin Gatlin, somebody who is putting in the work off the track that's going to make them a better athlete in the end. And usually they can really relate to that when they see someone that they look up to doing what they should be doing. So that's kind of one of my ways of motivating young athletes in the weight room.
Nice. And I think you're just a motivation too,
And I
yourself.
think it helps when they see that I can squat more than they weigh.
All right, here's the next question. This one is for Coach Stein. We have, what percentage of grinding versus pleasure do you build into strength and conditioning program for athletes?
That's an excellent question as well. I try to make every workout as fun and as engaging as possible because I realized very early in my career the more you can get players to buy in, the better the level of effort they'll give you. And the better effort they give you on a more consistent basis, the better the result. So it's actually, as a coach, if I'm looking to get the best result possible, it's in my best interest to make things fun and engaging. So I would say that's a pretty high priority of mine. To get buy-in. You know, I work exclusively with basketball players, and traditionally, basketball players don't love strength and conditioning. They just want to be on the court and they want to play. That's all they want to do. So already I'm behind the eight ball. It's a rather tough sell with most basketball players. So in order to kind of get them in and to really increase that buy-in, I want to make things fun and I want to increase that pleasure value.
Nice. I remember, I'm not the trainer pro here. That's where you guys come in. So I'm just going to read these questions, and it's really up to you guys because I have no clue what some of these mean. So excuse me. So actually, the next question is for Alan as well.
Okay.
Because we don't have Jody on air right now. We lost him. Alan, here we go.
Yes.
Your information on reduction of joint injuries is on point. How can VertiMax play a part in prehab training?
That's another excellent question. My primary goal as a basketball strength and conditioning coach is to help bulletproof the body, is to reduce the occurrence and severity of potential injury. And for basketball players, we start from the bottom and work up. So we're talking about the ankles, talking about the knees, talking about the hips. And a good portion of what causes some of these, both acute and cumulative injuries, is jumping and landing, because that's basically what the sport of basketball is predicated on. And the VertiMax is such a phenomenal tool for loading the body safely and being able to, consciously work on safe, soft, proper landing. So it's an excellent tool. As Mike mentioned right in the beginning, previous to the VertiMax, there really wasn't a safe, conventional way to load the body for jumping and landing type exercises, and that's why it's such an invaluable tool. But teaching players first in a conscious state of mind, and then hopefully it becomes a habit and becomes unconscious, is teaching them how to land softly, how to land quietly, and how to land on balance. And I use the VertiMax both on platform and off to reiterate that.
That was a great question, actually.
Very good question.
So here's some of the new live tweets coming in right now. I think this would be a great question for Mike. It says here, the stretch shortening cycle proves that the VertiMax is the greatest tool to produce explosive athletes. Do you agree?
I agree that the stretch shortening cycle is very important for developing power and explosive movement. And I like to say that Is it the greatest tool? We think it's a darn great tool and one of the best tools. But it's the VertiMax. Actually, most of the exercise that you do on VertiMax, really a lot of them don't even involve the stress shortening cycle. The jumping does, of course, and that's very important, obviously, for developing power. But I believe that the VertiMax is a very it's a dynamic tool. But the versatility, I believe, is what the strongest attributes of the VertiMax is that it can virtually train virtually any explosive movement on an athlete for any sport to maximize power and velocity. And basically that's what athletes want. We want speed and we want power. And you've probably heard a term called, that's thrown around a lot now, called speed strength. And you ask a lot of people, they really can't define that. But basically what it is the ability for an athlete to generate force and apply it to something at high velocities. And if an athlete can improve their ability to generate force at high velocities, i.e. improve speed strength, they're going to be a much faster, a much more explosive athlete, and they're going to have the ability to not only accelerate, but decelerate quicker, which you don't hear people talking about a lot. In sports, deceleration is very important also. And also, again, as Alan was talking, bulletproof in the body. Most of the injuries that occur in the knee area, for instance, occur on deceleration when an athlete is on one foot, with most of their weight bearing on one leg. And anytime you can develop an athlete's power and strength to compensate when they decelerate from various angles, you're bulletproofing an athlete. You're making a much more a stronger athlete and a much more durable athlete.
Very nice. All right. Next question.
Well said.
Sorry, there is a million coming in. This is hard to choose. All right, how about this one? It says, I train dancers ages 8 to 18 where vertical jump ability is very important. What exercises on the VertiMax are most effective? Mike, do you think that's a good one?
Yeah, is that for me?
I think so.
Okay. The quarter quick jump is probably when people talk about what's the most important exercise I can do on the VertiMax. I believe the quarter quick jump is probably the most fundamental drill that any athlete, including a dancer, should do on the VertiMax. The main thing with developing the vertical jump and explosive power in the legs, there's two important things when you want to do that. Using any tool where you're training at high velocity with a load, the two very important components you need is the intent to go fast, or the effort on every rep, but you also have to achieve the velocity on the rep. If an athlete is squatting 300 pounds at 0.3 of a mile per hour, they're going to get stronger. But when I was talking about speed strength, a lot of that newfound strength with a low velocity squat is deployed at low velocities between 0 and 4 miles an hour. The average athlete, when they leave the ground, is moving about 7.5 miles an hour when they do a vertical jump. So it's very important that if you want to improve an athlete's vertical jump and increase it, you want to make sure you're developing an athlete's strength out in the 6, 7, 8 mile an hour range in addition to the low velocity range, and that's where the VertiMax becomes very critical. And that quarter quick jump is a great way to do it because the athlete can, if they maintain their balance, the quarter quick jump is just a great way to use maximal effort and get maximum velocity with a loaded repetition. I hope that answered it.
Yeah, very well.
Yes, and I'm actually going to switch it up and go to Alicia now.
Sure.
Alicia, you ready?
Yep.
So this one is a great question. So as a runner, you need that muscle endurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
But some runners don't want to bulk up. What is your advice for that?
As in some runners don't want to bulk up. It's not necessarily about bulking up, especially for a sprinter. It's about the sprinter who can generate the most power output, the quickest. And like Mike was talking about, deceleration. It's the person who wins the race is somebody who decelerates the least, or prolongs that, I guess I could say. So you want to train your body to be strong and powerful. You don't necessarily have to train it to be big. You just want to be able to output that power fast.
Nice. So this question, the next question is up for anyone, whoever gets it first. The question is, What would you do, or how would you explain to parents the necessity of secondary training outside of just working out at school? So this sounds more like, young athletes. How do parents really explain that to them?
That's a,
Secondary training.
I think Alan or Alicia would be great at taking that one.
Go ahead, Alicia.
Okay. Well, secondary outside of school, school is very general, depending on if they're in a sport or if they're just doing like physical fitness class. Um, it's definitely something that if the child or the youth athlete wants to go further in their sport, they need to look outside the general, coaching, general teachers, physical activity teachers that are available at their school. They need to get into training full body movements. They need to be able to be dynamic. A lot of times, a lot of coaches or gym teachers are still thinking as the body as, separate segments when in fact we're completely connected through our muscular system and our fascia, and we need to work in that realm where you're getting more dynamic and moving more dynamic. So it's very important to let your child or your athletes know that they might get more from their skills if they do look outside of school.
Nailed it.
Anybody want to add on to that, or?
No, it's perfect.
All right. Well, I like this question. Here we go. Any chance VertiMax could work on my golf swing?
It's all you, Mike.
Actually, right now, we do have a lot of golfers using VertiMax. You can take the bands when you're staying on the system, and if you're a right-handed golfer, you can take the right side bands and connect it behind your body to your left side, and left side bands come across your body and connect it to your right side. And actually, you can provide a counter torque on the swing. So when you go into your backswing, the system actually rotates your hips into the backswing, and you got to work through that as you swing. You can actually hit a golf ball while you're strapped into it. But that leads, again, to our future product. We've actually finished patenting a swing training system that provides and rather than the cords coming down from your ankle, this new system, the cords come out down from your waist. This new system, the cords will come out horizontal from your waist, basically providing a perfect counter torque on your hips while they rotate. And you just hook up inversely, whether you're a left or right-handed golfer, you hook up the opposite way to produce the right counter torque into your backswing and then through your swing. And of course, this new system also applies a load to the shoulders and will apply counter torque to your shoulders throughout the swing. And it actually moves with you when you address the ball. So it's a pretty awesome device. We expect to have it out there in about a year and a half. We just patented the system, and it's going to be, I think it's going to be a real revolutionary and quantum leap forward for training the golf swing.
That's exciting.
Awesome.
And do you have anything? I remember you guys might have a couple of these in-house. Do you have any nearby or anything that you can show on camera?
Oh, the swing training system?
Yeah.
That's still being prototyped.
Oh,
we have it on
darn
paper. It's on paper. It's in the patent office on paper, but we're still in the process of prototyping an actual working model.
Okay. I thought I'd just check. All right. How about Alan? Here's a great question. It says, Alan, your information on reduction of joint injuries is on point. How can VertiMax play a part in... Oh, did we read this one?
We did that one.
We did that one.
It's still a great question.
Oh, it is. All right. So one question for that was originally for Jody. It says here, what are a few training modalities that we can add to high school programs that will help athletes transition to collegiate programs?
I think Zal want to take that?
Yeah,
I think that one's great.
It might be just on my end. I don't know exactly what is meant by the question, so I'll just kind of take it as far as, what can we as coaches and parents do to help prepare players to move from high school to college. And I apologize for whoever wrote the question if you were looking for something different. First and foremost, it all starts with a level of accountability and making sure that players and athletes understand how important it is to train your body and to improve your athleticism. And I know with our basketball players, I'm the strength and conditioning coach at DeMatha Catholic High School right outside of Washington, D.C., and most of our players are fortunate enough to play college basketball. And I explain everything to them using a pyramid as an example. And if you can picture a pyramid, the wider and broader that you can make the base of that pyramid, the higher the potential peak. And that foundational layer, the bottom of the pyramid, is actually athleticism, is the body. And in order for players to be able to maximize their skill and maximize their potential on the court, with basketball as an example, they have to improve their athleticism. That's the number one thing they need to work on in order to maximize those skills. In the game of basketball in particular, skill is still king. It doesn't matter how good of an athlete you are. If you can't shoot, pass, rebound, defend, or handle the ball, you're not a very good basketball player. But without maximizing that foundational layer of athleticism, you will never be able to maximize skill. And, you know, for me in particular, and this is what makes basketball specific, I thought it was really cool that Alicia mentioned she's trying to eliminate deceleration when she's working with sprinters, which I think is phenomenal. But I'm on the other side. I'm working on deceleration. That's one of the key components to basketball athleticism, because being able to stop on a dime and load and explode in another direction is extremely important in the game of basketball. For me, the number one point that I want to get to our players is redefining basketball athleticism. Most of them think it's simply how fast you run and how high you jump, because let's admit it, that's the sexiness of athleticism. And while the VertiMax is outstanding at improving speed and jumping ability, as a basketball player, as Mike mentioned, you have to be able to decelerate. We have to work on balance. We have to work on hand-eye coordination. We have to work on reaction. We have to work on quickness. We have to work on mobility. And once again, the fact that the VertiMax is arguably the most versatile tool out there, it can help with all of those different areas. So I guess back to the original question is making sure players understand that their athleticism is the foundation of everything they do, in my case with basketball, and then secondary is making sure that they understand that that definition of being a basketball athlete goes far beyond running fast and jumping high.
And I'll just add a little bit onto that, away from like the fundamentals and that part. It's also sports psychology, I find, for athletes that age. When I took Team Canada last year to Israel, although like at that level you're more of a managerial role than a personal coach, because all the athletes have their own individual coaches in my sport. I still got to see athletes that are, you know, prime in the country at their event, but breaking down mentally when they get to that level and not being able to perform where they should be. So I think also goal setting and sports psychology when you're going away to university is definitely something that you need to work on, because a lot of times these athletes are going from being the best in their county or their city or their state, and they're up against the best in the world, really, when they go to compete, and they're not mentally prepared to handle that competition. So I think that's something they also need to work on.
Absolutely.
Nice. So Mike, this is a really great question right here. It says, what is the youngest age an athlete can start training on VertiMax? Are there any health risks for kids who may be too young?
I really think that's really a tough question. I think it has to do that the athlete has to be evaluated. Personally, we had such a demand by younger athletes to use VertiMax. We came up with a new band that can apply about 2 pounds of load to the VertiMax. The youngest athlete I've worked on the VertiMax is 7 years old, and of course they're doing very basic training with that. They may do some basic squats without even leaving the platform. They may do some basic movement patterns off the platform with a single band attached to the waist that only applies 2 pounds. I think the biggest thing you have to worry about is a lot of times you get some parents that are overzealous and want to start their kids too young, and they give their children too much too soon to do. And typically, if you're starting a child young, you've got to make sure that their foundational strength is there. Their basic movement patterns are correct. The way they squat, the position, the knees. There's a lot of pre-work that has to go into condition that athlete to train them to move properly before you even think about starting to place loads on them. But again, to answer the question, if you have an athlete or a child that has the right training and they're physically sound, about 7 years old, with a special bands that apply 2 pounds, and again, your very, very basic movements. You do not do anything complex, and of course, as the child gets older and they get stronger and their skill level, their athleticism increases, you can do more and more things. But I wouldn't recommend a child younger than 7, and again, if you do train a child that old, it's very, very basic movements.
Okay. And Alan, I know you're a father. Not sure how young your kids are, but have they seen the VertiMax?
Yeah, they've seen it. I actually have twin sons that are 4.5 years old, and I have a daughter that's 2. So they're a little bit under the cusp, but no, I think what Mike said was right on point, and actually, I think that kind of parallels my philosophy just on training in general. I mean, usually I start to work with kids is around the 7, 8, 9 years old, if they've proven they have both the physical and the mental maturity to be able to handle a structured program. But no, his answer was absolutely perfect.
Yeah. When I work with athletes that young, I always try and make it fun. Like, I incorporate games and things like that, so they keep their attention.
Absolutely, yes.
Well, I think this next question goes kind of the opposite. So it says, how can VertiMax help men in their 40s? Can the body at this age gain vertical leap?
Well, being the 53-year-old on this panel, I can answer that. To be honest with you, I use the VertiMax probably 3 times a week, and I've never felt better. The one thing I really love about the VertiMax, I designed it to train an athlete do everything, and I got about a 27-minute workout I do on the VertiMax, and when I'm done with that workout, I probably feel better, more agile. I feel like my body got a better overall workout. Flexibility just across the board. I developed a 27-minute workout that goes from it's vertical jump training, it's off-platform lateral, linear training, back pedal, high knee drives, high steps, and I think it's a great tool, again, because you're using your body in ways that you won't, three-dimensionally. You're moving three-dimensionally in a lot of these drills where as we get older, we have a tendency to do one-dimensional training. We may do a bench press, squats, curls, and that does not reflect a lot of times when people get older, 40, 50, 60 years old, when we hurt ourselves, we're bending over to pick up something, and our body wasn't ready for it. I think it's very important as you get older to have some type of ballistic training, to do ballistic training safely. I think one of the biggest mistakes people can make is once they get 40 years old, they say, well, I'm 40 years old or I'm 50 years old. I can't move fast anymore. I can't do explosive training. And one thing I always tell people, every time I meet someone that's 10 or 15 years older than they look, they're a tennis player. And tennis is one of those great sports where you're flying over the court, you're stopping, you're starting quick, and you're moving three-dimensionally in every way you can imagine. And what the VertiMax does, it gives me the ability to move like that, but with loads on all parts of my body. So I say as you get older, don't tell yourself, unless you've got a physical limitation, that you can't train explosively or quickly anymore or move ballistically when you train. If you do that, I think your body will basically I don't want to use the word deteriorate, but it's going to degenerate faster if you don't stimulate it properly.
Hey, Mike, will you send me that 27-minute workout so I can look as good as you when I'm 53?
Yeah.
We'll post that after this video.
Absolutely, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think to add on what he said, like, it doesn't matter what age you are. Like, if you're moving functionally, whether you're 40, 50, 60, and you're moving in functional movements, and you're using resistance to do that, you're going to have more mobility in your joints. You're going to the only thing that synovial fluid doesn't have a tube that goes into your shoulder or anything like that. The only way to get synovial fluid moving is to move around. So it's really important to do.
So again, we got a couple of questions. I don't want to exclude anyone. All of our Team VertiMax fans. Todd Schultz says here, how is VertiMax being used in the rugby league and rugby union, and what specifically can we use for these sports? So rugby.
Actually, there's a couple. VertiMax has made great gains in the track field recently. Of course, it's a staple in football and basketball. Rugby is one of the sports where we're still breaking into, and it is used by rugby teams. Some rugby teams in Australia right now, but the overseas and in Asia, it's more thought of, as Alan said before, as a vertical jump training tool. So a lot of soccer teams that use it, professional soccer teams, it's mostly the goalies using it as a vertical jump training tool. Again, the VertiMax is a great off-platform training system which allows people to attach bands to their feet and load the leg drive and swing phase when the foot breaks contact with the ground. A lot of times, or most of the times, athletes do not load the muscles that are engaged when the foot breaks contact with the ground. And that's the one thing that the VertiMax EX system in Raptor does that is really, it's a quantum leap forward for speed development, but a lot of the world doesn't know about it yet. So one of our goals is to elevate basically the awareness of what this system can do as far as it goes to speed training. And hence, most of the off-platform training drills you would do would apply very much to rugby and soccer, any ground-based sport. And Alicia or Alan, either you can expound on that.
Go ahead, Alicia.
That's all you.
No, I think you hit it. I mean, there's so much similarities between all of the ground-based sports that, yeah, absolutely, VertiMax transcends every one of them.
Yeah.
So it looks like we're actually running out of time, and we have one final question for all of the panelists here. So everyone wants to know, who's that one person, that one coach in your life that really motivated you to kind of, take it to the next level? Can you guys think of any coach?
Wow. My list is pretty vast. I've had, boy, dozens of people that I'd consider mentors, people that have kind of paved the way. It would really be hard for me to single out any one, and a good portion of those really helped me out very early in my career, again, back in the late 90s for me. Yeah, I don't know that I could narrow it down to one. And what I always try and do is I'm getting a little bit older and hopefully wiser is trying to pay that forward and really take a lot of time to help the younger coaches out there, those that were like me 15 years ago. So if anybody's watching this, wants to get into the industry, you have that passion to work with players and athletes, by all means, please reach out. It'd be an honor to help. I'd love to help you the way that many people have helped me.
Yeah, just like Alan, I've had a lot of coaches that have impacted me in different phases of when I was an athlete and when even as a coach, I have mentors that I look up to. There's a few that just kind of have had a major impact. One, his name is Craig Taylor. He's former Canadian bobsled coach. His wife's gone to the Olympics, and he just instilled into me just my core values and on how I coach and the systems that I use. I look back when he was my coach and just the things that he said to me, and kind of one of my favorite quotes that I actually use with all of my athletes at certain point in time is with runners. For some reason, when they're doing drills, they always want to look down at the ground, but he always said to me, he's like, the ground's not going anywhere. So that's just kind of like one of my key things that I use with my athletes is, you have to keep your eyes up, especially when you're sprinting. You want to keep focused, you want to stay in good, proper form so your technique doesn't fall. So definitely him. And I had a lot of coaches growing up as I was young that definitely I wouldn't be a coach if it wasn't for them, for doing such a great job and molding me as an athlete and showing me that I have the skills to teach others. And so yeah.
Nice. Mike, do you have a favorite coach or someone you remember?
Oh, actually, it would be Garrett Guimond, who's currently the head strength coach of the Steelers. I met him when I was back in 2003 when he was the head strength coach of the Bucs the year they won the Super Bowl. And I guess being in the field that I'm in, what I appreciate about Garrett Guimond is he pays attention to all the details in training. And he was one of the guys that said, Mike, I went down there with the VertiMax and wanted the Bucs to use it. And he said, Mike, figure out a way to load the hands. You got to figure out a way to load the arms. And that was about the 10th guy that told me that. You got to figure out you got to load the arms when you jump. It's so important. And so I came back the next day with a system that loaded the arms, and we became friends ever since. And watching the programs that he puts together for the athletes, it's amazing what he does in the training room. For instance, the Steelers, when they come into camp, they actually start wearing their gear in camp. And Garrett walked up and he goes, Mike, a lot of times these guys will come in and train, and they're not. A lot of coaches won't have the athletes train in the gear that they wear, or at least simulate the weight. Because if you got 15 pounds of gear on a football field, and you spend 2 or 3 months conditioning without that 15 pounds of gear, and you put that 15 pounds of gear on and your body's not ready for it, the difference between an athlete's performance on the field of play is astronomical, even as far as wearing cleats and everything. So that's just one strength coach that pays attention to all the details and really does a tremendous job training athletes. And I've always appreciated the attention he paid the detail in training. So he's been a pretty big impact in my thought process for designing systems going forward.
Very nice, guys. That's really awesome. So there's actually a reason we asked that question. You know, VertiMax promised a big announcement, and one of the big things that they're planning here is a VertiMax contest, and they want to know who is the MVC, the most valuable coach out there. And basically what we want is people to submit their MVC, whether it's a quote from their coach, a picture, a video, prove who is, you know, that person in your life that really took it to the next level. And VertiMax will be giving away one VertiMax V8 to a high school that ultimately has the MVC. So, you know, this will be launching August 25th, so definitely connect with VertiMax on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whichever you use the most, so you don't miss out on the details and you don't miss out on that VertiMax. What do you guys think?
That's fantastic. Hopefully
fantastic.
take advantage.
That's great.
So I want to say thank you, everyone watching, and thank you to our expert panel, Alan, Alicia, Mike. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Well,
welcome. Thank you.
Alicia, thank you for joining us, and we appreciate it very much.
Our pleasure.
All right, and thank you, everyone, Team VertiMax at home. You know, let us know what you thought of the video, what you learned with the hashtag VertiMax On Air, and you can watch this video again. It'll be on our YouTube page. So this is Connor Storch, VertiMax On Air, signing off.